Hi, welcome to Tell Me I'm Pretty Please, where everything that could possibly go awry this week has gone awry. Not really. I shouldn't say that because it's actually been a really good week. Everything's been fine. I'm back at work. They might have forgotten that I work there. I've really had nothing to do. I've had two emails this entire week. And none of them have required any action on my part. So, that's on them. I asked. I got to have dinner with a friend from out of town, so that was really nice. It was really nice to catch up with him last night, but I procrastinated the shit out of this podcast this week. I don't know why. I'm the only one pressuring myself to do any of this. Nobody really cares. I just could not get into what I wanted to talk about this week. I wasn't even limiting myself to one topic. I had a topic in mind. I just couldn't figure out what I wanted to talk about in regards to that topic because it's like I could go so many different ways with it. And then I just couldn't get my imagination flowing if there was something else. So I'm recording this on Thursday instead of Wednesday, and I'm at a completely different camera angle because the camera's not working today. For whatever reason, my camera won't connect to the recording system. So now I'm using the laptop camera, which is never allows you to be at a great angle. So I hope I don't look a fool. On the bright side, you get to see my really cool artwork on the back wall there that I got to have. The downfall is you don't get to see these beautiful flowers. I'll just bring them to you. That my friend sent me to celebrate the podcast. So thanks, friend. You guys know her as Dunks. It's that was so special. That was such a nice surprise. Thank you. I love you so much. So I procrastinated the shit out of this episode. I really couldn't figure out what I wanted to talk about, how I wanted to talk about what I did figure I wanted to talk about, blah, 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 blah. I digress. So instead of researching, I started logging my rocks. I like to think I'm a little bit witchy, and I have like a little journal, or it's kind of like my own personal little witch notebook. They call it a grimoire. I just don't feel I'm qualified to use that term. It's really just these rocks do these things metaphysically, and I just really like to keep those written down because I forget all that shit. I've always really been into crystals and rocks. I have a freaking rock tumbler. I'm a nerd. I was with my grandfather last weekend for Easter, and I walked out of his store with him, and I bent over. He's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I'm 33 years old and I still pick up rocks." He's like, "Yeah, you've been he's like, "You got to stop. You're going to get hit by a car." What the fuck, kid? He didn't say what the fuck. My grandfather doesn't swear very often. Anywho. So, yeah, I procrastinated the shit out of this. I'm still procrastinating the shit out of this. I Easter with my family this weekend. My sister and I, we had a huge fight a few months ago. I had to be a mean big sister and give her some really hard truths that, honestly, this comes into play. This is a great segue. So she's 22 years old. Just living the life of a 22-year-old. She just really was struggling to get her shit together this past year. But anyway, my sister probably is going to listen to this and be mad at me again, even though we were perfectly fine over the weekend. Part of what that fight with my sister was about was I felt she was being judgmental towards our mom. And I felt that was just wildly hypocritical of her to be judgmental towards our mom because she's just as guilty as the same behavior, hypocrisy. And I just we don't jive. I'm so deeply traumatized by the golden rule and the do unto others. It was in the back of every single one of my classrooms. And it just it's it's seared in my brain. That is my number one core value. Do unto others as you would have others do unto you. I just really let her have it. And I was just your behavior recently has just been really bad. Your attitude, your treatment of others, your treatment of us. This is a lot of bad behavior I've been seeing from you and how much it's like affecting how people are viewing you, like our trust in you, our faith in you, our empathy for you. I told her she was destined for a trailer park, or destined to be trailer trash or something like that. She read that as I called her trailer trash, which I can see how she construed that, right? Like I can see where she drew the connections. But it wasn't what I said. What I said was like, your behavior is just like, it's, I was clearly super judgmental and unkind to people who like live in trailer parks. This is not a reflection of them. It was just, I really knew how to get my sister where it hurts. Not an excuse. Anywho, she really clung on to that and really clung on to that like idea that I was like being so heavily judgmental of her. Whereas I was just really like, these are my observations that I've been having, and these are my feelings about these observations, and my opinion of the person you are becoming because of these behaviors. It got me kind of thinking about like the difference between being judgmental and being critical, like being somebody who passes judgment and being somebody who passes, like, gives criticism, gives feedback. Um, I don't particularly like view myself as a judgmental person. Like, you do fucking you, not my circus, not my monkeys. You don't have to apologize for being you. I do wonder, like my mother says, Shauna just really loves culture. I will sit there and I will people watch and I will wonder about you, and I might ask you questions that kind of come off as judgmental, but it's genuinely from a place of like curiosity. Like it's not, I want to know like why, like what has, like what inspires you. That's really what I'm looking for, is like, what inspires you to dress the way you dress? How did you know that you were gay? These are questions that I have asked that have like come off as being, oh, you're going to try to fix me. And I'm like, no, I just am genuinely curious. Like, I haven't had the experience of like realizing my sexuality was anything different from the social norms, so I want to hear about it. However, I do sometimes cast judgment on clothing. I have seen skirts over jeans recently, and it still doesn't work, you guys. Just we're not trying to make fetch happen. Um but I really started wondering like the difference of judgment versus criticism, and so I like went digging, and what I found, what judgment is about you. It's like it's a statement made about you. Oh, look at her. Based off of like this, I'm assuming something about her. Like that's a judgment. Whereas like a criticism is usually about something, like a thing you are doing. It's usually comes from like this well thought out place of, I'm going to give you some feedback so that you can learn something more, so you can learn from this experience. Whereas judgment is like, I'm shutting you down. Like, yeah, this is like, you're never coming back from this, babe. Judgment is more like the shame game. Like, how could you do that? Why would you do that? Whereas like criticism is, where did this idea come from? As opposed to, why would you do that? Where did this idea come from? Criticism is like, here's like things that I've just been experiencing with you, like a pattern behavior I've been recognizing, just like a like blip that I caught, that like, hey, like you could do a little bit better. So I've been reflecting on myself and where I've casted judgment versus where I've casted criticism. And I'm not to say like I've never cast judgment. I'm just saying, generally speaking, I don't think I'm a judgmental person. It's not to say like I haven't been judgmental in the past. I'm not innocent here, but I have been like reflecting on it. And um it came up again when having a conversation with a friend a few weeks ago, where she brought up slut shaming. She was like, I feel like I haven't seen a lot of slut shaming recently. Is it gone? And I really was like thinking about that too. But it kind of like got me thinking about like where I'm at with this idea of like judgment, and where I like how I feel about like myself and judgment. And like I realized while we were having this conversation, like one thing I do not stand for is slut shaming. It's a really hard pass for me. I will call you out on it immediately. Like I will see red. Like I have made a friend pull over the car and let me out of her car in the pouring rain because I was not listening to her slut shaming anymore. And then I didn't talk to her for like 6 weeks. You don't run it by me. Like I don't fucking care. Like it's none of my business what people are doing with themselves, with their lives, with their bodies. Like it's not even that I don't care. It it's not like something that I would ever think twice about having an opinion about, like having a place to have an opinion about. Hi Milo, come on up. My brain just like does not even pick up on like some of those little more societally standardized like judgmental things, which I think is why I don't consider myself judgmental. Again, not saying it never happens, just saying like it doesn't constantly happen for me. That really got me thinking about like, where are we at with slut shaming? And is slut shaming more prevalent than or less prevalent than it has been in the past? And I posed the question of, is it really less prevalent, or am I just really that picky about who I allow in my life? And I'm just not seeing it because my algorithms are super feminist, or really, what was it? And so I started looking it up, and I wanted to like really get into the nitty-gritty about this, as I always do. Again, I love a research project. Um so I want to start with like what slut shaming is, that way we're all clear about it. Slut shaming is defined as the stigmatization of an individual based on appearance, sexual availability, actual or perceived sexual activity, and sexual orientation. This is from the National Library of Medicine. It's mostly affects girls and women between the ages of 12 and 24. You can come on up. No, he just is gonna stretch. He might come over and say hi. Um, and like tech and social media has definitely, hi baby, has definitely increased like both the opportunities for slut shaming, the ability for it to, for not only to happen, but just like the platforms for it to be, promoted and encouraged. Slut shaming is just really this awful like form of violence towards individuals, about just like trying to shame them for this private, intimate, vulnerable matter, right? Like that is just, it's so individual. It's so, everybody has their own experiences with sex and sexuality. Everybody has their own story, and to just assume somebody's life based off of your perceived notion of it, your perceived, like what you're assuming about this person based off of how they're dressed, or what they prefer sexually, whether like their sexual partners, how they identify. An interesting statistic to me was that actually more bisexual women are slut shamed than heterosexual women, which when you really think about it, it's the lesbian porn craze kind of makes sense for that, right? Like, so like if you're bisexual, then maybe you're more open to like more, like different types of sex, or those types of things like bring on slut shaming. And it was really, really, really prevalent. I remember it being a huge, huge thing in middle school and elementary school, even at like fifth, sixth grade. I When I went through puberty, like I gained a lot of weight. So like I had boobs before, like I had bigger boobs than everybody else earlier than everyone else. And like my cousins used to make so much fun of my boobs, like, and that's like a form of slut shaming, like the oh, you have big boobs, you have to cover up. Like I still to this day like really have a lot of insecurity around my breasts and like having cleavage and all that stuff because of like just the teasing I got because I had bigger boobs than other girls my age. But it's really it's really become like super prevalent probably in the last like 40 years, with the rise of wider acceptance of extramarital sex and premarital sex. More and more women are having sex before they're married. Like, it's been on the increase since I think 1973 is what my research was saying. So there's been this increase of acceptance of women having sex, but with that has come this increase of shaming women to have sex, which is a fucking double standard, and double standards like hypocrisy radicalize the shit out of me. The whole he's a stud, she's a slut. So like, boys are encouraged to go out and have like sex with lots of women, but those lots of women that are having sex with these boys are sexual deviants, and they're sluts and they're whores and they're skanks. They somehow failed at being a woman by living up to the societal pressures that are being put on them by the societal pressures put on men, the pressures put on them by men because they have societal pressure to have sex. But that it's a cruel circle. But yeah, like, just like really trying to shame somebody for like their sexuality, their like how they are sexualized, how their sexuality is perceived, what their sex life is. It's, you know, again, nobody's fucking business. The numbers, because I love a statistic. People who slut shame, equal parts men and women. Girls do better. Men, just again, refer to last week. This doesn't surprise me at all, though. I know how cruel women can be. I've spoken to enough of them, and listened to enough of them speak about women, and it's just not for me, dude. But it affects about 50% of women and girls ages 12 to 24, and 22% of boys ages 18 to 24. It's wildly linked to this objectification of women. Like, women's bodies are used to sell all sorts of things, right? And they call it exactly that, right? They call it sex sells. And like, what's the sex? It's a woman's like perfectly toned like abdomen or the inside of a thigh, right? They say sex sells, and it does. And it's because of this objectification of women's bodies. And it's wild. It's wild. They did a study in 2017. I'll put this in the show notes, but this person did a study. They were trying to just study how like people are perceived based off of how sexually explicit they are posed, and pictures that they were willing to take. And what they found was the less clothing the person was wearing, the more sexual in the picture, the more incompetent they assumed that person was. Like, the bigger bitch that they thought the woman was, the stupider they thought the man was. The poorer they thought they were. Like, all like they just had such a negative image of people who were men and women. This was done. They did equal parts men and women. That regardless of sexual orientation, the more sexually objectifiable you are, the more incompetent you're seen to be, the less beneficial to society you're found to be. There's also another study that kind of compared white women to black women on how much they're slut shamed. Also, unsurprisingly, black women see the most slut shaming out there. They receive the most. They fear for their safety sexually the most. Than white women. We got to do better, you guys. We really got to do better. As a whole, we really got to make our women feel safe, regardless of skin color, regardless of what they're wearing. It's, you guys, this research really just pissed me off. I think that's part of why I didn't want to do it. And then another study found that it seems to be encouraged and perpetuated by the school systems, which, again, if you're a girl, probably doesn't shock you. Between dress codes and just like how sexual health is like talked about and discussed and taught, there's a lot of abstinence only sexual education programs out there that just really perpetuate the idea that like if you have more than one sexual partner, you are gross, right? Like I remember in my, I think it was probably 7th grade, it might have been 8th grade, our sex ed class or that year's health class or whatever, we had like the STD at the time, STI chapter of our health class. And I just remember it was wildly perverse. Like it was just so obscene how STIs were taught in class. Like really gross, aggressive pictures. And there was like somebody came in, and this was like part of the abstinence only teaching. And they had us spit into a pitcher of water. And they would like just go down the line, and they would like have one person spit into the pitcher of water, and they would be like, yeah, see, like it's not really cloudy, so like, you know, one person is fine. Like the pitcher was obviously representing like your virginity. And this getting in one person, yeah, you're fine. 2 people, all right. 3 people, and like it just kind of kept going. The point where like by the end of it, the picture was like disgusting. Like it would look disgusting. It had like 26 people like spit in it. It was gross. And they were like, yeah, this is what it's like when you have multiple sexual partners. Like horrifying. Quite literally, you're telling me I'm disgusting. That's literally what this class is teaching, is like I'm disgusting if I have more than, you know, 1 or 2 sexual partners. And it's just, again, like not surprising at all. Like, but we gotta do better, and we are. That's kind of like the point. We are in some ways. In some ways, you know, back to like my main question of, you know, is it just my perception or is it reality? Like, is it my perception is my reality, or is it really the reality of the case? And the reality is, like, yes, as a whole, we are becoming more and more sex positive. It's this sexual positivity is coming with like just being more open and welcoming to LGBTQ plus community, or just being just more open about sex in general. Women are getting married later in life, so there's just more just like women are more allowed to have like sex, extramarital sex. That's just more socially accepted, but it's not really helping anything. It's actually almost like we're overcorrecting this. So there's this shift that happens. If you remember, like the studies, the numbers were saying like slut shaming really majorly affects like women up like between 12 and 24, right? And it's, yeah, part of that is probably like those are the girls that they were able to get in the study, or those were the age ranges that they did the study on. But something else that happens is kind of in your mid 20s, this slut shaming kind of just stops. And then it becomes virginity shaming. Women are are constantly pressured. Like if they have not had sex by the time they're like in their 20s, mid 20s, like why? Like something's wrong with them. Oh, you must be a prude. So now it's either you're a slut or you're a prude. So when you're young, it's bad to be a slut. It's good to be a prude. But when you're old, it's bad to be a prude and good to be a slut. Like we're doing this overcorrection thing. And again, in my opinion, it's because we're all too fucking nosy about other people's sex lives. Like if you're curious about what other people are doing because you want to find some like common humanity, or you want to like find some an understanding about something you're curious about, great. But otherwise, like it's none of your fucking business. My soapbox. This is just my soapbox. I'm so sorry. But yeah, there's this overcorrection in society, and I've experienced it myself as well. In like that my roommate constantly like speculates about my and asks me and tells me about my sexuality because I haven't had sex in a year. Like, I haven't had sex in a year and a half, and so probably I'm asexual or demisexual because I'm not interested in like just going up and hooking up with any Don Juan on the corner. I did that in my 20s. I'm 33. Like I'm over casual sex and I just haven't found my lobster yet, right? Like it's really not that serious. It's not like, oh, maybe you're asexual, maybe you're demisexual. Like no. I like boys, but she would kind of keep speculating about it because I'm just like not showing interest in men, and I'm struggling to like form a connection with somebody in the dating pool, and it's as opposed to it just being like, yeah, like maybe this just isn't like my place. It's, oh, maybe there's something wrong with you, or putting a label on it, which I, again, from the top, I was like, I said, like, I don't do the labeling thing. It's not the way my brain works. My brain does not jump to like, I don't sit there and speculate if someone's gay or straight. Like, it's none of my business. If they want me to know, they'll tell me. Anywho, but it's just the statistics, the numbers are out there about like I'm not alone in this. I'm not the only single 33-year-old woman who hasn't had sex in a year and a half, right? 25% of single women haven't had sex in 2 years. Like that's a pretty sizable number of single women. Especially if they're not giving us age range. So it's we are getting more sex positive, but even though we are getting more accepting of sex, it's not necessarily making sex safer. I mean, obviously, like we had the Me Too movement a few years ago. I mean, there's just astronomical numbers of women who have been sexually harassed, sexually assaulted, molested, raped, and even by public opinion, it's slut shaming is still out there. And slut shaming is still used as a way to victim blame as well. Like 41% of men say women who are drunk or dress provocatively are kind of to blame for their sexual assaults. Like they agree that they are to blame for their sexual assaults. And 30% of women agree. And this is people under 65. And when you get to 65 plus, those numbers jump up to like 48 and 33%. So it's still this awful stigma that if you seem to be provocative in any way, shape, or form, and something bad happens to you, it's your fault. Which we would be here for 4 days if I got into a tirade about that. So if you're asking yourself, Shauna, like, what do you have any advice? Do you have any feedback for me as to I find myself judging, I find myself slut shaming or prude shaming, like what can I do to not do that anymore? I'm so glad you asked. I'm so happy you asked that question. I would love to help. First of all, just asking yourself that question, great start. Welcome. I'm welcoming you with open arms to the judgment-free zone. Just challenging that question, just challenging those thoughts, just saying like, if you look at somebody and say like a woman walking down the street and you're like, huh, she's dressed like a whore. You could like then think to yourself, like, why the fuck did I just like, who cares? Like, why do I care? It's not my problem. Just challenging those thoughts in your head and challenging those thoughts from that other's voice. Like when you have a friend who is, bitching about Sabrina Carpenter, like joking about giving blowjobs at her concert, you could be like, cool. Like if you don't like it, don't watch. Like it's well known that she does this. It's like it's common knowledge that she does this. If you've seen anything about her performances or any reviews of her performances, if your argument is like, well, she shouldn't do that because kids come to her show, she's like fucking 25 years old and she prances around in bra and panties. Why are you taking your 5-year-old there? The woman very clearly is not for children. She hasn't been since she left Disney Channel. Can we just let Disney Channel stars grow up? That's a whole other podcast. So then yeah, just really, really challenging those and having those conversations and being open to those conversations, right? If somebody calls you out on it, being open to hearing that and like having the conversation about like if you don't understand what you did wrong, what you did wrong. Education, like education is key, right? Like not abstinence only education, not let's gross everybody out by showing them a picture of blue waffle education, real sex education, real education about sexual health, sexual preferences, safety, consent, and really know like learning these things that are probably going to be uncomfortable to learn. Challenging the stereotypes kind of goes hand in hand with, just challenging those thoughts, reminding yourself consciously that it's a stereotype, not a fact. It's an assumption, not a reality. And challenging that again in others. And then the last one is just consent. Like consent is key. That is how, we are going to get on track with this of just knowing that, everyone's sexual journey is fully theirs. It's fully theirs to explore and enjoy and try out new things and whatever it is that they want, as long as it's done with the consent of all partners and like you and really pushing that and enforcing that for yourself and enforcing that in others, um, are just some ideas that I and a few articles that I have read had. Slut shaming is still out there. We are still seeing it. We're still hearing it. We still have, conservative moms complaining about pop stars and how they dress, just like they did with Britney and Christina, and Madonna and Cindy and on and on and on. And yes, it's my own algorithm and my own reality because of just choices that I make and boundaries that I have. Yeah. Thanks for going on that processing journey with me. I apologize if I got a little rough there with my judgment of judgmental people. Um, I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. And wow, I'm signing off of this like a Zoom meeting. I've been back at work I haven't even had a Zoom meeting since I've been back at work. But I'm gonna leave it at that. You guys have a great week.